You know that we have just come to a turning point in the church year a couple of weeks ago, and a turning point in the story of Jesus. That is, we've finished the first half of the year and all its fol-de-rol and celebrations around the life and death and resurrection of Jesus, and we have returned to accompany the disciples in their journey with Jesus. This journey of discovery for them and for us. They have already, up to this point in Luke's Gospel, been called and witnessed his preaching and his power. And now they set out on this journey, which will take us for most of the summer. And it's not clear that they really know who it is they're following or what their calling is to do. But this journey is one of discovery for them. Discovery about who Jesus is, and therefore about who they are and their life and meaning and purpose. And the same is true for us. And this season begins with these 4 weeks in a row, starting last week, of really juicy stories. They're all stories that you already know, and they're powerful stories, and they're powerful because we can see in them that they are defining who Jesus is for the disciples. The disciples are walking along with him day in and day out, and they see these stories, they participate in these stories, and they discover something about this Jesus and about the kingdom that he is proclaiming. So we want to try and hear these stories with that sense of discovery about who Jesus is. And we also want to hear these stories with the understanding that what is unique about Jesus is not the kingdom that he proclaims, but he is the kingdom. That is to say, wherever he goes, he's bringing the kingdom. He's not just talking about some kingdom that's going to come, or that you and I can be a part of, or something like that. He is the kingdom. And they are accompanying the kingdom as it becomes embodied in the world. So last week, we heard the story of the centurion's slave, who the centurion has someone ask Jesus to heal this slave, and Jesus proceeds to go towards the centurion's house, and then the centurion sends another messenger who says, you don't need to come because you don't need to be here. I know that you can do this healing because you have authority to command that in the world. And so from that story we hear 2 points. One sort of interesting and one profoundly important. The kind of interesting part is that Jesus can do remote healings. That is to say, we often hear him and see him in the gospel touching people to bring about healings. But this story tells us, no, he doesn't even have to be there. He can just say, be healed, and you're healed. That must be pretty terrifying for the disciples to discover, that they don't need to actually see him presently there, but he can heal who he will heal from whatever distance he may be. And that's kind of the interesting point. The second point, which is rather more profound, is his proclamation that he has seen no faith in all of Israel like the faith of this Roman centurion. That is, this kingdom that he's bringing into the world knows no boundaries, knows no religious boundaries. That it's a kingdom that people can live into faithfully whoever they are, whatever culture they belong to, whatever beliefs they may have of another nature, if they live into the kingdom faithfully, that they can bring about the power of the kingdom in their own lives and households. So that was the learning for the disciples last week. This week we have the story of the widow of Nain. And I'll just, as a heads up, next week we'll have the story about the woman of ill repute who washes his feet with her hair when he's at a dinner party. And the week after that, we'll have the story of his visit to the land of the Gerasenes and the wild man who lives among the tombs and comes out and challenges him. These are pretty good stories. You should come to church. Today, it's the story of the widow of Nain. And this happens right after last week's story, and they've proceeded from Capernaum to Nain, which is a couple of days' walk. And we don't know why they went there, but they're approaching the town of Nain. And they come to the city gate, and out comes a funeral procession of a young man who has died. And there is his mother wailing